All rise. We have a call to order. Salute to the flag. Ms. Walsh, if you lead us to the salute to the flag, please.
I would love to. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Resource Committee, Mr. Stevens. Boy. Hit it.
Oh, I don't have my papers here with me. We met last week, and oh boy, Bob, do you have your notes?
I have it, yeah. The next one, I'll find it.
All right, we'll move.
Okay, yeah.
School Committee Chair report, I have none. School building needs. That's me. No, that's not me. That's
Facilities,
you.
yeah,
Right.
again, we can get those.
Okay,
come back
all right.
to 'em, yeah.
Policy Committee.
You have a policy before you, which is open for a first reading, and that has to do with student search and K-9. And we had a lively discussion about this. We will be moving this forward for a first reading this week.
Great. Thank you. Student Support Committee, Ms. LaBelle Pierce.
We met tonight, and on the agenda was really how to help the growth of the Fitchburg High School band and support the incredible efforts that the band instructor at the high school has been doing. We got really a comprehensive look at what's being offered right now, and we decided that we would like to talk about it further and put together a task force going forward about the vision of the music program, and particularly instrumental music program. So if there are people who are watching or out here who want to be involved in a task force to that nature, please get in contact with me. I'll be sending information out about that as we go forward. And then we had a presentation about the Signs of Suicide program that is going to be piloted at Longjo in this month. Parents will be getting information about it. It's an active sign. Parents have to sign to be a part of that program, but it's another really important social emotional learning program that the schools are offering. And then we updated their Gala grants are off and running, so we're excited about that. But that's it.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Seeing then, school personnel, we continue to have negotiations with the nutrition folks. That's the update on that. Executive and marketing, I have nothing to report. And, Brianne, you're up. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Please.
Last week we had a blood drive, and over 50 people, mostly students and some faculty, donated blood. And this month is Heart Disease Awareness. So last Friday was Red Day. I mean, every Friday is Red and Gray Day for Fitchburg High School, but last Friday was specifically red to support for heart disease awareness. People in HOSA, which is a club for people interested in future health occupations, they've been selling little heart kits that are $2. Proceeds go towards heart disease awareness. So that will be going on all this month. We also had a can drive in honor of the Super Bowl, and we had $350 in donations along with cans. And the class of 2018 advisors are going to buy some Market Basket gift cards with the funds, and they'll give them to the Cleghorn Neighborhood Center. So they can buy fresh fruit, other produce, things that they need instead of just cans. There is a big home basketball game tomorrow night. The girls are at 5:30 and the boys are at 7. It's against Leominster, so it's kind of a big deal, and everyone's getting excited for that. Today,
Predictions?
well, I'm always rooting for
You're
Fitchburg High.
supposed to say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want them to win.
Right,
So
good. Okay.
we'll have a good student section.
Go Raiders.
Yeah.
Okay.
Today and tomorrow is the biology MCAS for people who either didn't take it last year for whatever reason or if they had failed. So the library was closed and a couple classes were relocated. And next Friday, there's a chorus concert at Fitchburg High, and it's free. So we're hoping to see a lot of students there because they put in a lot of hard work. I think that gets overlooked sometimes when people just think about sports for extracurriculars, but people in the chorus, they do a lot. So hopefully they'll have good support there. And
What time is that?
it's at 7. The last thing is we found out last week our AP tests are going to be $30 each, capped at $100. We had a meeting. So that is very helpful, especially for people with multiple tests. The normal price of an AP test is $93. So we have people 5, 6, 7 APs, and they'll be capped at $100. So they're essentially getting the price of one test. So that we are very grateful for that because it's a big help.
I've got a question probably for you, Superintendent. Are there any students who can't take the test because they have
Well, this
haven't
is
got the
new for
resources?
us because of the the removal of that funding that was helping with
Right,
AP.
right.
I'm being told, and I think I mentioned it at urban superintendents, that the commissioner's saying they're looking to put in a separate line item in the budget to help defray the costs. Because this was especially a big topic because they're looking at the new accountability system. And one of the new components of the accountability system is participation rate in AP. So you would have a district like Fitchburg that's gotten its participation rate sky high when it was $15 or $13 a test, and now if it went to a full cost, you could have a whole bunch of people who couldn't take the test, so then the participation rate would plummet, and so you'd be held accountable for something that you had no control over,
Right.
and it would, what's supposed to count for you would count against you. So it was a pretty heated discussion about this, that we need to find ways, to fund that. But the commitment that we've made with Mr. Roach at the high school is this is an ongoing conversation, and we need to be a part of it and make sure that no one is in a position
Right.
not to be able to take the test.
Do we have any sense of how many students that would affect that would have difficulty?
No, not. I don't have the
Okay.
data for that.
Yeah. Can
But
we get that?
We're up in the 400s or more, probably over 500 taking the test. So even if it affected 1/5 of that, that's 100 students.
Right.
So we'll look into that.
Yeah,
I'd like
we
to,
can
I'd
get
like to
those
know
data.
that.
Yep.
And to make provisions where we don't, we don't prevent them from being able to take that test and hold up that process. Thank you. Any questions for the student report? Brian, thank you. Approval of the minutes for regular school committee meeting, January 23rd, 2017. Do I hear a motion?
Actually,
Oh, yes.
I had a question on the minutes. If people could look at page 6. I think
Page
it might
6?
make more, page 6 on the minutes. I thought it would maybe make more sense to move the last sentence. Ms. Giaquinto added that while the policy would remain, the regulations within could be changed as needed without revising the policy. That was put in after the discussion about the PR staff member, but it refers to the policy. I don't know if it's worth making the change, but it refers to the policy that's mentioned in the paragraph above. So I just noticed when I read it that it didn't connect for me, but I might be.
Is this under action items?
It's, I'm sorry, it's right before that.
Third paragraph.
It's number 7,
Okay.
so it's before the public testimony. I don't know, Dina, if that makes,
Okay. What do we want to do?
it's a simple amendment. I think we could propose it that, it could just be
That's fine. Yeah.
in place.
Well, let's have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, any other questions?
I have one
Yes.
correction.
Yeah.
On page 2, it says that I seconded a motion, but I wasn't here last week. Also, although I was seconding it at home in my I was seconding it with my heart, but I wasn't here. So it must have been seconded by someone else.
See, people do read these minutes, don't they?
I know.
Right? Okay.
So I'm assuming it was.
What page are you talking?
That's
Page 2.
Page
two.
2.
Under
Number 3.
Yeah. Motion was passed unanimously, seconded by Ms. Walsh. She was not here. So do we need to open an investigation as to who it was that said that?
I just wanted to point out
All
that I
right.
wasn't here, so I couldn't have seconded.
It was seconded by, I will say that I seconded it. How's that?
I think I
I was
was.
going to, but I made the motion.
We
All
voted
right, so we can amend the
unanimously.
minutes to say that the mayor seconded the minutes.
Very good.
All right. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Okay. We had that vote. All motion to approve January 23rd minutes for the school committee. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, it is unanimous. I don't believe there's a need for executive session, Superintendent? Exactly. Okay. Communications?
Hi, thanks, Mayor.
Yes.
So, Pittsburgh is a model community. We are inclusive and welcoming of all. And to that end, I'm wearing a headscarf in solidarity with Muslims in the greater community. We had a very successful interfaith conversation at the Ahmadiyya Mosque a week ago Saturday. There was a really wonderful standout and speakers at Pritchard Street in Maine on Friday. And I think the mayor really, says it best. We welcome everyone. And to that end, I also wanted to share information about the Love and Kindness Student Standout, a celebration of community promoting kindness and acceptance of all. This takes place a week from today, Monday, February 13th, 3:30 to 4:30 in downtown Leominster at Monument Square. And we're asking folks to bring a flag from your country of origin, or cut out a large red heart out of poster board, and you can put a slogan on it like love, peace, kindness, or an image, a globe or a dove. Come when you can, stay as long as you like. We're going to have a sing-along of patriotic songs. Students, families, and elders are all welcome. And this is also being organized by some of our colleagues at Leominster School Committee with myself and Representative Natalie Higgins. So I am very glad to be living in Fitchburg right now. I will say that. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cragen. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none. We're now in the public comments section. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to make a public comment? 5-minute limit. Yes, please. You cite your name and address if you would.
Sure.
Thank
My
you.
name is Cheryl McGee Stewart, 81 LaGrove Street, Fitchburg, Mass. And my children went through the public school system, and my grandchildren are entering it now and had great educations. I'm looking forward to my grandchildren entering it. I'm here because I advocate for dog-assisted searches in school. These searches make it hard for anyone to bring drugs into the schools. I feel the searches are a preventative deterrent for the school system, and that they may find students who need intervention by these searches. I believe that we have to do all we can for the children's safety in our school system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to speak? Chief Ernest Martineau.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. For the record, my name is Ernest Martineau, Chief of Police, City of Fitchburg. First, I'd like to thank the Fitchburg Public School Subcommittee for a very fair and transparent vetting of this policy. I'm here tonight to say that the Fitchburg Police Department has reviewed the policy. We're fully supporting this policy. It's been almost 8 months since we brought this to the attention of the school committee, and we're hoping for a favorable vote so we can proceed forward with this type of policy. Fitchburg Police Department is extremely committed to our public schools' safe and healthy environment, and we believe that with the canine exercise in the schools, it's going to send a message that we take safety, health, and security at our schools very seriously. Like I said before, the police department has a chance to review these policies, and we fully support it. And I'd be happy to answer any questions this evening for the school committee as you move forward towards your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else requiring 5-minute public comment?
My name is Neil Delfeld, 21 Gale Street, Fitchburg. You understand that this gives me standing.
Thank you. Moving on, superintendent's report.
Okay, we have this week, as you remember the last week, we were hoping to have our 2 former student reps here so we could recognize them, and they're here tonight. So if Yasena Mary and Nizani, if you could come up and take a seat here. I personally want to say you have both done an awesome job of not only representing yourselves, but representing Fitchburg High School and representing the Fitchburg Public Schools. I couldn't be happier. I always look forward to everything that you had to say, your enthusiasm, your love for Fitchburg High School, no matter what, and the kind of things that you brought to it. So, I don't know if the school committee has anything else that they would like to add to that.
Yes.
I want to thank you, too. I want to echo everything Superintendent Ravenel said, and thank you. I wish you guys the best of luck. I think you're going to go far.
Thank you very much for representing us, and I look forward to seeing your names on applications for alumni scholarships for this spring, and be looking forward to seeing you there and at graduation. And Nizani, I loved your television appearance.
Oh, I forgot about that.
was great.
Yes, just A1 plus. You were outstanding on there. You just did a wonderful job and represented Fitchburg and you and your family very well. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So what's happening next year? Well, you know yet? No? Is it still too early?
They're making us wait till March.
Yeah?
March, yeah.
Do you know where you're going to be applying? Or?
Well, we applied to. So I applied to a lot of schools in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
So some in Connecticut, and I believe one in Maine. And I hope to hear from them soon, hopefully.
And any idea what you want to major in?
Yeah, I like international relations.
Ah,
Yeah.
great.
And I also applied to Boston, but my number one school is Harvard, so hopefully we'll see what happens. And I also want to be a neurosurgeon.
And your fallback school is Fitchburg State University, correct?
That was the Reach School. That was the Reach School.
Come on. That's the Reach School, he's saying. Yeah. Good for you. That's great.
Mayor, could I just?
Yes.
Girls, it's been nice to see you present here, and it's been fun to see you at the events that I've gone to at the high school, because not only are you really great academics and present yourselves really well here, but you look like you have fun.
We do.
And you seem like you're really involved in a lot of activities, so you really kind of embody what I think we hope all of our kids' experiences are. So thanks.
Thank you so much. And sorry if we missed meetings, by the way.
Sorry
I
about
apologize.
that.
Me too.
Okay, well, your timing would be perfect for Harvard, because we have a Fitchburg High School grad who's graduating
That's
from
right.
Harvard.
Yes.
So they're going to be looking for
Mr. Richards.
No.
So we have a little gift for you.
Oh, thank
This
you.
is a pen and pencil
Michael.
set. Those were
Yes.
used in the olden days when people knew how to write. So some of you are able to
Thank you
use
so
these,
much. Thank you.
but it's
Thank you.
traditional, and
Thank you so
congratulations
much.
and thank
so
you.
much.
Okay.
We appreciate it.
Another great example of Fitchburg Public Schools, and this is what we help to produce,
Absolutely.
isn't it? Isn't it great?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Congratulations to all the teachers and administrators that had a hand in their success. Thank you.
So we, you all know Project 351. I think it was started by Governor Patrick, was the one who began that, and that was bringing together 8th graders from across the Commonwealth. And tonight, we have from Angel Franco and Saimarie Velasquez Carrasquillo. Angel is from Lonjo, And Marie is from McKay Arts Academy. So if both of you are here, we'd like to invite you to come up and, no, neither of them are?
Angel's not here.
The what?
Angel's not here.
Okay, okay, so they're not here either. All right, okay.
Tell you how great they are, though.
All right, then why don't you have your shining moment?
Yeah.
And come and talk about how great they are. So if you can just talk a little bit quickly about 351, what that is, and who these two students are, who are very busy and couldn't be here tonight.
They're doing their homework.
That's right. So thank you for having us. Angel's from Longjo from my school. One of the things that he did while they were doing the weekend, they worked on on one of the schools in Chelsea. They did a service project at one of the other ELT schools. So it was a nice connection for him to go there. Angel's a phenomenal member of our community. He's a leader, so I'm really excited that he continues this work and gets those kind of connections going within this whole project. It's an outstanding program for our kids. This is our second student that's gone in the last couple of years, so we're really thrilled about it.
Mary is an 8th grader at McKay, and she's a true leader at McKay. She often works with younger students in the school, and she was a very active participant during the process of our development of our school-wide constitution. And I actually received communication from a staff member from Project 351 complimenting her and McKay and saying what a perfect candidate Mary is to work with young people and to represent middle school leaders. So we were very proud about that. She spent the day in Boston working with students from across the state, and she worked in an agency working with students who are less fortunate and providing them with food items and clothing. And then she'll go back to Boston in March, where her cohort will work on gathering donations for the next cohort of students that will work next year and do the same, have the same opportunity that she had. She's like super excited about it, and we're glad that she's able to participate.
Well, thank you. And we look forward to seeing them as they progress through. Usually, whoever those students are, we see them again and again and again coming to school committee. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you remember, I forget when it was, but Riley Reed came before us and talked about an upcoming trip she was going to have to Washington, D.C. Well, Riley has gone and come back, and she's here tonight to tell us about, I thought it was just a quick trip. It was 4 days, I think. So to tell us about her trip, what she did, who she met, and why it was such a wonderful time. So Riley, come on up and share your experience.
Well, to start off, good evening, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak in front of all of you again. Some of the highlights that I was fortunate enough to experience a couple of weeks ago while at the Envision Leadership Summit in Bethesda, Maryland, was that the program started with a preparation video from the Nobel Peace Prize winner Malala, and I got acquainted with my roommate, who happened to come from Georgia. I also got to meet the members of my group that I would be working with for the future of medical health care. We would then work on a presentation, and we'd have to speak in front of a large group of people to express our feelings about the problems in healthcare. The camp was significantly different from the STEM camp that I attended this summer. There was a lot less hands-on activities, but there were more opportunities for discussions and learning from some of the great leaders in our world. On the second day in DC, I traveled to the Washington Wizards Stadium for a Skype video with Malala. Her father held a special Q&A session, so he got to travel to visit us. It was incredible to see her live speaking to us, especially after I read her book and I got to see her documentary previously. Her journey from the life-threatening injuries to being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize was simply amazing. The message she provided us about being empowered by her father was inspiring. Her quote she mentioned was, "He did not clip my wings." spoke to me on a level unimaginable. She ended her presentation with one of my favorite quotes, which is from her Nobel Peace Prize speech. "One teacher, one child, one pen, and one book can change the world." Later that day, we got to meet with Governor Martin O'Malley of Maryland and Carly Fiorina of Lucent Technologies and Hewlett-Packard. It was amazing to hear their stories of how they became leaders that positively influenced the environment and the technology industry. We then headed back to the hotel to prepare for the inauguration the next day. I happily sent my father a text at 3:52 a.m. that the hotel telephones rang at 3:30 as a wake-up call to get everyone on board the bus to Washington at 4:15 a.m. On a side note, I happen to not be a morning person.
That's a side note.
When we got there, we walked around for about an hour to get to the Smithsonian. On our walk, we passed the Washington Monument, the Jefferson Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, and the statue of Paul Revere. Outside, it was absolutely freezing, and the forecast showed rain showers. Luckily, my mother helped me pack for all the possible weather conditions. When we arrived at the Smithsonian, we had the entire second floor to ourselves. We got to go through their butterfly garden, we got to see the Hope Diamond, and there were various space rocks, including part of Mars. Some students took the opportunity to rest before heading out to the security check-in. When we arrived at the security check-in, we got scarves to indicate we were part of the Envision group. We were fortunate to go through security without any issues, but the same could not be said for the protesters who were expressing their colorful feelings. It was incredible to be within the four main viewing areas as President Trump was sworn into office and delivered his inaugural speech. They had large monitors and speakers which allowed us to clearly view and hear the ceremony, even with all the crowd's cheers and jeers. After the inauguration, we headed back to the hotel to further work on our technical presentations and provided and we went to bed early after the historical event. Our final day included presentations from General Colin Powell, Spike Lee, and Abby Wambach. All three provided incredible testimonies on where they stood on moving the world to a better place for all of us. I really enjoyed hearing General Colin Powell talk about his personal journey. He was a straight C student. His mom wanted him to attend a prestigious high school, but one of his teachers stepped up and advised her against it. He explained that he was a good kid and he would struggle academically if he had attended. He assured her he would find his own path. After graduating, General Powell didn't know exactly what he wanted to do, so he enlisted in the Army. He is a 4-star general and was the first African-American Secretary of State under George W. Bush. Spike Lee shared that he really enjoys the art of making movies and expresses his feelings through his art. That day, he happened to be wearing a President Obama t-shirt for the presentation. I was really excited to hear Abby's presentation. I watched her play her last games on the women's national soccer team. She stated she is going to use all her past recognition to help women. She will be the voice of women and equal rights. She hid her sexuality for years. She wants everyone to be who they are and embrace their own sexuality. She played for the U.S. national women's team, making me aware of the huge pay gap between the men and women's salaries. Each player on the men's team earned more money than the entire women's team after they won the World Cup, even though they didn't even make it past the first round. She is fighting the salary battle now. Once again, being the voice for many girls, she said she would be attending the Million Woman March after the presentation. Her message was empowering. It was then time for all the focus groups to provide the final presentations. There were over 500 attendees, middle school and high school combined, and I felt confident to express the strategies we formulated as a team. Unfortunately, my group did not win the prize, but the experience was so rewarding that completing all the pre-homework and the multiple sessions throughout the camp, the winning team was a group of high school students. This gives me something to strive for in 2021. We attended the inaugural gala at the National Air and Space Museum. I was prepared with my camera as I was advised that the Space Shuttle Discovery was there. The bus ride to Virginia was worth the trip as I got to see many artifacts throughout history. The exhibit was larger than I could have expected, as they even had an IMAX theater within the building. After the gala, I packed ahead of schedule, as I was ready to go home and get some rest, or at least sleep on the car ride home. I would like to share a special thank you to all my teachers, Mr. Hennessy, Ms. Polson, Mrs. Wilson, and Mrs. Rodriguez, and Principal Thomas for supporting me while I attended this once-in-a-lifetime event. I was very concerned about missing school, but they all put me at ease. This was a wonderful experience, and I feel so fortunate to have had this opportunity. I am blessed to live in a country where education is available to everyone, and I intend to take every opportunity to learn and further educate myself. Nobody is clipping my wings. Thank you all again for allowing me to share some of the highlights from my trip.
Wow.
Great.
Very
Excellent.
That was incredible.
What grade are you in again? What grade?
6.
Sixth?
Sixth grade. The
Mr.
best
Thomas.
is yet to come.
It's impressive, huh? Yeah, good job. Nicely done. Good. Thank you, Riley. Any questions? Yeah. Oh, we have a gift? Yeah.
No.
No?
Okay, well, we have a little gift for you. You know, for going all the way to Washington and representing the Fitchburg Public Schools. And not even knowing that it was that it was tonight, it's a Fitchburg Public School scarf, so it's right in line with the theme.
Yeah.
So thanks so much. What we've seen are students who are in the public schools now. I'll turn this over to Ms. Cragen, who asked to have this put on the agenda and to meet a student who was in the Fitchburg Public Schools and actually sat at one of those chairs at one time as a student representative. Ms. Cragen.
Thank you, Superintendent. Kat, come on up and talk a little bit about your co-authoring experience. So I put the summary of her article. I emailed everyone the article she wrote that was published in a textbook. And Kat was with us in 2010, so Mr. Stevens and I were at the table, and so was everyone here. And can you just talk a little bit about the path you chose and how you chose it? Because we have your article, "Children and Families in Poverty," by Lynn Kellner and Kathleen Cragen, and this is very germane to our situation here in Fitchburg.
Yeah, so I am a 2010 graduate from Fitchburg High. Most people actually don't know that I didn't transfer to Fitchburg High until my sophomore year in high school, and I actually grew up and attended in the North Middlesex Regional Public School System. So when I transferred to Fitchburg High, it was much of a culture shock for me. I was actually researching some Department of Education statistics earlier today to prep myself for this meeting and what I'd actually talk about, and I was a little bit shocked to find out because at the time I didn't realize that it was staggering, as I do now as an adult realizing the differences. But I realized that in North Middlesex, 13% of my peers were low income. I was one of those 13%. And then transferring to Fitchburg High, 67.9% of them were low income. And that's a staggering statistic, and including diversity as well. I came from a school where 94.6% of the students were white, and moving into Fitchburg High, 40.6% of them were white. And so the highest level of percentage was actually Hispanic population when I was there, which was 42.2%, and at North Middlesex was only 2%. So as a sophomore in high school, I transitioned to Fitchburg Public Schools, and I dove right in. I was the captain of my softball team, volleyball team. I sat here on the school committee with my peer Sandy Lohr, co-captain of volleyball team as well. Sandy and I have actually been in contact with one another recently, reconnecting about things, but traveling through Fitchburg High as a student, I didn't quite know where I wanted to go. I thought maybe I could be a high school bio teacher or I could do animal science. So I went to UMass Amherst and studied animal science for a year, decided it was not my forte. I did not like living on campus. I wanted to come back home to the city of Fitchburg, and so I did. I went to Fitchburg State to study secondary education and biology.
I did that for a semester until AmeriCorps landed on my plate. So I mentioned I was low income in high school. I qualified for the Upward Bound program through Fitchburg State, which is a program for low income and first generation college students. And so I was a student in that program for a while, and then I returned back as a residential counselor and was asked to come on as an AmeriCorps member. And so AmeriCorps was when my eyes kind of got open to local statistics in terms of poverty and low income and first generation college students and stuff, and especially working with Upward Bound. And so I did that for a year with Upward Bound, and then I decided to stay with AmeriCorps for another year, and I did their VISTA position at Mount Wachusett Community College. And there I was able to help them create a program to have our interns serve at the Boys and Girls Club of Fitchburg and Leominster, of course also serving some of our lower income and diverse families. After that, during that, I got my human services degree from the Mount. I got free classes there because I was an AmeriCorps member through them. So I got my associate's degree at no cost in human services. And I went on to Fitchburg State to finish my bachelor's degree there as well. I did a 450-hour internship at the Students Serving Our Students office at Mount Wachusett Community College, which is a peer mentoring program, which was student-led, student-created, student-driven. And so I oversaw that program for 450 hours, and that was my internship. And moving on from Fitchburg State, getting my bachelor's degree, I worked with adults with severe intellectual disabilities with Community Resources for Justice. I was an assistant clinician. I traveled around the state, and I trained staff on how to work with these individuals. And then I got laid off from there, and now I actually work at the Sizer School here in Fitchburg. I am their recruitment and communications coordinator, and I oversee their student ambassadors as well as their United Way Youth Venture program, which I was also a part of in high school. Yeah, Sandy and I, we launched 2 United Way Youth Venture programs together in high school, and now I've come back to co-champion. So I guess, in terms of Fitchburg Public Schools, and one of the reasons why Sally had asked me to come here tonight was just to tell you about my journey and how I came about writing this. One of my Fitchburg State professors just enjoyed the way I wrote, and she asked me if I would be interested in co-authoring a chapter in a textbook with her, and I said, absolutely. And so I did, and it was actually about a year ago that her and I wrote this, and so when I got the copy of the textbook in the mail, I was surprised because I almost had forgot that I had written it, and so she did, I'm sure Sally did send it to all of you. It's 36 textbook pages, so it's kind of dry, but it was really just writing an extensive research paper and collaborating with Lynn Kellner on it. And I now serve with Lynn Kellner on the Human Services Board at Fitchburg State as well.
Wow.
Questions? Sure.
Yes. Now, you said you transferred to Fitchburg.
Yes.
Is it because your family moved here, or you chose to?
My family moved here, so I grew up in Pepperell. And my family and I moved to Fitchburg. I'm actually the youngest of 5 siblings. And so my sister actually transitioned halfway through her junior year in high school. I chose to commute to North Middlesex to finish out my freshman year. And then I transitioned after the summer into my sophomore year at Fitchburg High. And my family and I have been living here since then. Yep, 2006 I've been living here since.
Kat, thank you so much for coming. This came about because it popped up on my Facebook, and she wrote, "I'm a published author," and I just said, "You need to come tell school committee." So thank you for that. I think it's really helpful for folks to hear that lifelong journeys can really start here, as a student on our school committee. And thank you for the depth of your research that you've done, and what you did just to prepare for here tonight. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having
me. Great. Thank you. It's always, we rarely get to see where everybody ends up. We watch them go by here, and then on they go. So it's just great to see you. And
I'm sure Sandy would love to come back anytime,
too. You know what? We may do that.
And before you go, Lynn Kellner is actually a colleague of mine, and we teach in the same department. And if she asked you to write, that's a very nice compliment. So that says a lot about you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, you made me think of it. Jeremy Roach and I have sent out a form, a survey that he's tweeted out, and we've sent out to alumni to fill in, because I'm trying to gather as much information as I can about students who have left and where they are and what they're doing. So if you know of anybody Spread the word.
Sally,
We're-
can I find that on Facebook? Do you know?
I will. I
think
have.
Sally's the only one in this room that I'm friends with on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's why
So
I asked
no,
her,
what I'll
but-
do is I'll send Sally the link
Yep.
to the survey. It's like an online survey.
Yes. Yep.
It's only 6 questions.
Yeah, great.
I'll send it to Sally. Sally sends it to you, and then
And I can
spread
share
the
it
word.
amongst my
share
friends.
it.
Absolutely.
We've
That would
already
be
we
great.
just put it
Absolutely.
up 5 days ago, and we've got over 100 alumni that have already filled it out.
That's
so
fantastic.
Get
happy
the
to
words
do it.
out there. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so we've heard from our students.
Thank you.
Present and future. And now we're going to hear from our principals. They've got a tough act to follow. And first is Jonathan Thompson from South Street Elementary School. The new approach is you've got a single sheet, a summary of everything that Jonathan and his team are doing, and he'll review that with you, and then there'll be a Q&A.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us this evening. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce these two lovely ladies next to me. On my left, I have Sue Tingus. I think, Sue, this is your first time to school committee.
Yes.
Sue is actually new to Fitchburg this year. She is a 20-year veteran teacher from Lowell Public Schools who left the classroom this past year to pursue administration. So she's been here a few months, and she's doing a really great job, so we're really lucky to have her. Her background is special education and general ed a little bit, too. So, and also we have Kat Craven, our SBSA. Kat, this is Kat's third year here as SBSA at South Street. This evening, what we have for you is we have we're going to discuss 3 areas that we've been working on at South Street. I'm going to discuss a little bit about the academic improvements that we've made around writing. Kat Craven is going to discuss our special education and how we are improving special education at South Street. And Sue will discuss a little bit about our social emotional behavior program at South Street School. So for our academic improvements, the last several months we've been really focusing on writing at South Street School. We looked at our data and we discussed with our teachers, what is a really big area that our students are not improving in, and it was writing. So we need to make sure our students can not only articulate their thinking orally, but to also articulate their thinking in writing. So what we've done is on our last 3 half-day professional development days, we begin working with our teachers on examining writing. So on our first half day, when we began this work, we looked at our writing standards, and teachers worked in mixed teams of each grade level, and they identified areas that students are really having a hard time in each grade level for writing. In addition to that, we talked about some possible reasons why they were having those area difficulties in writing, and came up with possible solutions. Then our next PD, what we did was we did vertical teaming. That vertical teaming is a way to have grade level teachers work together. So what we did was if you're a second grade teacher would work with a group of teachers below them and a group of teachers above them. So the second grade teachers worked with first, and then they worked with third grade to really dig deep into our writing standards. And what we wanted to do is really create those exit skills in each grade level and say, as students, exit second grade, what are those standards in writing that they really must have in each grade level? So we did that K to 4 during our last professional development. Then we actually discussed a little bit of one of the other big issues is our graphic organizers that students use. There's so many graphic organizers out there. We really think one of the big areas that students struggle with is there's so many. So now our next PD is we're going to go back and kind of revisit our work that we did and look at graphic organizers and see if we can have those graphic organizers be universal for South Street, beginning all the way to kindergarten and going all the way up to 4th grade. And we're hoping that will help our students organize their thoughts a little bit around writing.
Jonathan, for people at home, can you just give a definition of what a graphic organizer is?
Yeah, a graphic organizer is a way to organize our thoughts. So, for example, if we're comparing and contrasting, a common graphic organizer that you'll see is a Venn diagram, 2 circles, and then in the middle they overlap. And on the left is what one topic has, specific to that topic. In the middle is how those 2 topics relate, and then on the right is information about that other one specific topic. So that's just one example of a graphic organizer, but there's a million different ways to, a million different graphic organizers to use for compare and contrast or main idea or cause and effect. So we're really focusing on certain ones, so we can say that if a kindergartner is exposed to that graphic organizer in kindergarten, they're going to see the same one in first grade, second grade, third grade, and fourth grade. So we're hoping that will help with the writing.
Okay.
All right, and in addition to that, our students, one of the big pushes this year in third and fourth grade is narrative writing. If you look at the Mass DSE released for MCAS 2.0, students are only going to be assessed on narrative writing this year. So we sat down with my team of administrators, coaches, and third and fourth grade teachers, and we decided to really do, really focus on that until we take the test in April. So what we've done is, starting on January when we came back from vacation, we said that we are going to have a narrative writing boot camp for third and fourth grade. What that means is that students are going to be given, every 2 weeks, they're going to be given a different narrative writing prompt. And what we're going to do is we're going to then, after the students are given that narrative writing prompt, we're then going to sit down as teachers and actually dig deep into that writing and really see what those areas that students are having difficulty in. We just did that last week in third and fourth grade, and one of the big areas that we are noticing that students are struggling with narrative writing is point of view. They really have a hard time with understanding the basic idea of what point of view is. Other things that we notice too is that when students are asked to, take the point of view of that character in the story, and they have to write that example, they have to go back in and rewrite the story based on that character's point of view. They're not going in and finding all the evidence that really supports that character's point of view. So we have to actually go back and teach those students that a lot of them are starting off their narrative writing really strong and showing evidence, but as they continue writing, they're not doing that throughout the whole piece. So we have to go back in and teach students that you have to do it throughout the whole piece. So that's a little bit around evidence and what they need to do. The last big piece is with our narrative writing push. We know that this year our fourth graders will have to take the test and they'll have to type. So what we're doing every 2 weeks is these students in the fourth grade, they're doing their narrative writing on the computer. They're doing it all on the computer under Google Classroom. So teachers are able to upload the prompt. The kids are going in and filling out those, doing their assignment, and it goes right into the teacher's inbox. So teachers are able to see that instantly. And we're actually all able to see that, all staff at South Street, especially myself and our coaches, and we're actually giving those students really specific feedback. That's with our fourth grade. With our third grade, we had our scoring institute last week, and I read about 135 student narratives. It took me almost all day to do, but it was really valuable for me to actually see exactly where those students are having a hard time in. And the teachers were a part of that, and we actually came up with some action steps on how to continue to improve students' writing. So that's a little bit about academic improvements at South Street. Kat,
Jonathan?
Special education, yes.
You don't use one of the professional writing groups like some of the schools do, the programs?
Lucy Calkins.
Lucy
We are
Calkins.
using Lucy Calkins, yeah. So we're doing this all in conjunction.
It's not a consultant group that comes in. It's a curriculum tool.
Okay.
And our coaches have been trained, and they're responsible for training teachers. So it's a very job-embedded system through
Okay.
coaching. But it's not, we're not relying continuously on having consultants come in.
Okay.
So
It's
we are
more-
using that. That's our writing program.
Okay.
Pete. So we're using that writing program, and it's what that writing program does is it teaches those big three areas that kids need to be exposed to for the standard. So it takes them through narrative, informational, and opinion. So right now our students are transitioning to opinion, but as we know, the state said it's going to be on narrative. So what we have to do is we can't just drop narrative writing, because we taught that in September and October. We have to continuously revisit
you
that.
do, or else-
So that's what we're doing right now. We're revisiting that at the same time as continuously, meeting those benchmark standards that are set forth. So we're teaching also opinion writing at the same time as we're teaching narrative writing.
And I think what we're learning is that
inclusion opportunities for our kids with special needs is just so very important. And this year we have been able to do some creative restructuring of our current special ed teachers in the building to allow for an expansion of inclusion opportunities to add kindergarten. So now we can say that we have inclusion in every grade, K to 4, at South Street, which is really exciting. This allows for every inclusion team to have common planning time. They can work with each other, making sure that everybody is working on the same standards for students in the general ed classroom and special ed. This has been, this is kind of key to making sure that our SPED group, which is one of our lower performing groups, to make sure that they have that progress and to make sure that they have that improvement. We have a special ed teacher now that's going into that classroom with K to 4. In kindergarten, it's so very important to get those foundational skills that now we have that teacher going into that classroom and being able to bolster them while we can, which we will then see come 3rd and 4th grade in a few years. We've also kind of expanded that to have our urgency meetings every 6 weeks, which allows every single teacher that works with these kids to talk about what is working, what isn't working, what interventions do we need, what strategies do we need to try. We would take our 5 kids that we think that we can move, or our 5 kids that we think that we need a little extra help with, and we would have the gen ed teacher, the special ed teacher, Title I, the coaches, ESL, anybody who is having FaceTime with the student gets together and really brainstorms what worked, what didn't work, what interventions did we use, what progress did we see, what are we going to do for next time. So that kind of keeps us on par with this is how we're going to keep the ball rolling and not just kind of stop with one idea. So that is how special ed is doing right now.
And in addition to continuing to implement responsive classroom, some of the other things, the lunch bunch, having outside agencies, pet therapy, social skills groups, we are also trying to put into place a program where we teach children that their behavior is a choice, that every action they do is a choice. They can choose to do A or they can choose to do B. And one is a good choice and one is not so much of a good choice. So we're really trying to teach children that and have them own their own behavior. We're also trying to teach, we're helping to teach teachers to build a better connection with students through talking to them about their choices that they're making, to have that connection with them. We want students to be rewarded for their positive behavior. So we're having celebrations around children who are making good choices consistently. We're celebrating children who can pull together, 5 good days, not necessarily in a row. So everything is being rewarded. Every little good choice that they're making has become a reward. And we're definitely seeing a decrease in some of those behaviors. One of the most important things that we're talking about is that it's through a book that I've read called Cooperative Discipline. It's called the 3 C's, and it's making sure that students feel that they're capable of doing the work, that they feel connected to the classroom, to the school community, and that they can give a meaningful contribution. And it shows that when students feel those 3 C's, that they're more successful and you're going to have less behaviors. We're also making a connection between the students and the parents. We're trying to use universal and consistent language throughout the school. We have started using the word choice. So when a student comes to one of us, we're like, what would be a good choice? What would have been a better choice? What did you choose to do? And having kids repeat back what they've done, whether it's the correct choice or an incorrect choice. If it's something that they really shouldn't have been done, we're having them call home with us there and processing it on the speakerphone with the parent, so the parent knows in real time what exactly is going on with their child in the school day. And we have an opportunity right there to have conversation and to help the child understand what they need to do to make a better choice the next time. It's really about teaching kids to make better choices, and not through a punishment system, not through anything that's negative, but always as a learning experience. And like I said, we're continuing with the Rockets Award, the Culture and Climate Committee, and we have also put together a Student Discipline Committee.
So,
Questions?
so you got a chronic offender, constantly disruptive. What do? He's ignoring the whole choice thing. He doesn't accept it.
Right. I really feel like it comes down to making connections with students,
Yeah.
to having a relationship with them. When you can build that positive relationship, even the toughest kid, eventually 95% of the time is going to come around, and you can have some type of meaningful conversation with them.
My concern is that the kids that want to learn, it's disruptive to them.
We've seen
No.
a decrease already.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on top of that too, and I think it's about making sure that those students who are the, students who are constantly,
Yeah.
in trouble or having, outbursts, we got to make sure they have the right supports in place. So is that, internally, what can we offer at Fitchburg Public Schools at South Street? Is it a lunch bunch group? Is it, one-on-one counseling with one of our
People might
guidance
not know what a lunch bunch
Lunch
is.
bunch group, sorry.
This is
I'm sorry.
educational jargon. Those folks are like,
So a lunch brunch group.
I know what that is.
Okay.
A lunch brunch
No, I
group for
don't.
people
I'm kidding.
watching at home is a group of kids who eat lunch with a guidance counselor. And during that time, they may talk about making friends. They may talk about problems that they may have outside at recess or in the classroom, and they'll talk about possible solutions. So it's a supportive group for them to learn positive behavior. So we make sure that those students who need that, we make sure they're hooked up with the right group of kids and also with the right group and the right teacher. In addition to that, we have a lot of outside agencies, and I do let these outside agencies come into South Street for counseling. We have Luck, we have Lipton, we have South Bay, Ewing. We have a lot of, at least 60 to 65 students see these outside agencies. If I did not let these students see, if I didn't let these outside agencies come in to service these kids in school, these students wouldn't have any social emotional therapy happening for them at all. And this is what keeps them successful in school. So it's actually working, having those agencies in and having them
How
as
many
partners.
have you got?
It's about 60 to 65 students who see a counselor.
What's the total population?
Of South Street, we have about 675 students. So it's 60 students, which we have a waiting list a mile long of students who need waiting for counseling.
A mile long?
A lot of counseling.
65?
What's that?
Above and beyond the 65?
Yes. Yep. And there's just not enough slots for them.
I'm not feeling so good about it. I said 65 wasn't bad. How many have you got?
Waiting on that
Total
wait list.
population?
So we have 675, but we have probably a good 15 to 20 on a wait list.
And what's the
For seeing
barrier for them to be seen by someone?
What's that? What's the barrier? Well,
Caseload.
it's caseload and just the time of day. I mean, we only have so many rooms at South Street to have this counseling happen. Andre's been very helpful to, allow us to use some rooms that he has available for us, but we don't have enough. There's not enough time or enough, support to go along with that.
So just to be clear, Jonathan, you said you have 65, and then you said the list is a mile long, but then you said there are 15 or 20 waiting
right.
on
Yes,
the waiting
yes,
list.
yeah.
Is it?
It's not a mile
That's
long.
a very short mile.
Yes, it
That's
is.
a quarter mile.
To me,
No, but
to me, it
I'm
is a
just to
mile long
clarify, because if there are
they need
15 or 20 kids who aren't getting the support that they need, and the variety is as many as the kids are. There are people who are in trauma because someone in their family died, because their parents are getting divorced, because they've been homeless 3 different times in a year.
Yeah.
And those affect how students learn. And also, and I think the article that was in the Sentinel did a pretty good job of it, because we kept reinforcing that, was that trauma does not create bad behavior.
Right.
And bad behavior does not create trauma. There are students who go through trauma who don't have bad behavior. There are students who don't have any trauma who do have bad behavior. So just like when I was in my K-8 school, there was a percentage of students who needed help, except back in those days, there was no help. There was nobody that helped them, and you could drop out of school and disappear, and nobody knew about it. Today, we have to figure out a way to give every support we possibly can with the pressure that every student is going to graduate. So just to clarify,
and when I
your
say
mile long.
My mile long is that these students need the service.
Yeah.
And, and for them to be successful in school, it's helping a lot of them become successful in school.
Even one kid feels like a mile long.
It does.
Yeah, and once they get the right aid,
we have to give
they're
them
able
the
to
support
learn.
that they need. And this is something this is outside agencies coming in. So we just provide the space with them. What these outside agencies do is they go through the insurance that these students have, and they bill the insurance. Yes, Jean.
If I could go back to the writing
Yep.
work that you're doing, and maybe this is part of Lucy Calkins, and I just don't really know that system well, but so people are aware of maybe where this particular student isn't achieving on a writing sample, right? So you're looking at a writing sample, 100 and something of them, and then you, as a student, I get that feedback. And I hear, okay, well, I need to work on whatever it might be, transitions or evidence to support my position.
Yep.
Do I rewrite that piece? Because that's been my question. I personally, as a parent, haven't seen that a lot, about that, taking that piece and perfecting it. And I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, it's funny. We just actually had a long conversation about this, and our initial idea was just to keep having the students give them feedback and continually have them write every 2 weeks.
Yep.
But after we saw the areas that students needed some work in, we thought, wait, we got to slow this down a little bit. They really need to go back and fix that piece. So what we're doing is, actually, we were supposed to have another writing sample last week. We were supposed to have a second one done, but we stopped, and we're going to actually wait till after vacation, because we want to give them these next 2 weeks to actually go back and fix that example.
That's great to hear. And I'm not a writing expert,
Yeah.
so I'm kind of asking people who are. To me, that seems logical. I could hear till the end of time that I need to work on such and such. But if I don't see it, I'm curious.
So what all the teachers did was, based on that writing assessment, what they did was they went back, and as a whole class, they wrote it together.
Yep. Okay.
And then they also picked some exemplars that were actually in our third grade or fourth grade classrooms, and we showed those students the exemplars, and we highlighted what those specifics were to that writing genre. And then we actually created needs-based groups in each classroom. So if a student needed more explanation of what point of view they're going to work with the teacher with maybe those 7 students. If students weren't going back in and citing evidence throughout their entire story, then they were going to work with a teacher on that, and then after they had that mini lesson, they were going to go back in and attack that piece. So yes, we initially didn't think that, but after we talked, we really felt that was beneficial for them to really polish one piece and then continue our work after that piece was polished.
Thanks.
So we're hoping to see some improvements.
Thank you.
So in a third grade or a fourth grade, how long is a narrative? I mean,
Yeah, so right now, I think right now we're teaching our third grade. They have about 2 pages to write.
okay.
So that's third grade. Our fourth grade is anywhere between 3 to 5 paragraphs, and that's typing now.
Oh, right.
So typing is
Right, it's a
and
lot,
and
yeah.
believe it or not, they're doing a really great job. Something that I did once I knew we were moving to the technology piece online, I went with my school budget and I purchased Typing Without Tears. And we start that all the way. Typing, we used to have handwriting without tears. Now it's typing without tears. So now they start off in second grade.
Can I get a copy of that?
Yes. I'll sign you up. We'll send it to you. But starting in second grade, as soon as they enter during our library special period, and also when they come in first thing in the morning, that's what they're doing. They're on there practicing their typing skills. And we also integrate that throughout the day. So second, third, and fourth graders are exposed to that right now.
That's impressive.
Jonathan, thank you, and
Thank you,
thanks
sir.
to the rest of your team.
Yep.
Great job.
Thank you.
Keep it up. There's a book, Superintendents Without Tears, too. I'm going to write that one.
I was going to say that you're hunting for that.
Yeah, we're hunting for that one. Principal Lourdes Ramirez and her SPSA You'll let you do the introductions, and you should have an updated sheet like this one. This was handed out tonight. Thank you, Lourdes.
Thank you for having us tonight. This is Rebecca Leiva, and she's our student support program administrator. SPSA is what we refer to her as. So she's part of our admin team, and her focus is special education. So we'll begin tonight discussing a little bit of some of the changes that we have adopted at McKay. This year, we changed the staffing pattern to respond to our population and the needs of our students. And one of the things that we did was that when we had a guidance counselor retire in the elementary level, we replaced her with an adjustment counselor. And Shayla Sterling is our new adjustment counselor who was working at Rheingold last year. So we were very fortunate to have her just move right over to McKay. And her focus is around working with students proactively, working with students in a private one-on-one setting, but also in groups. And Becky will talk a little bit about that.
So I work very closely, not only in special education, but I work really closely with the assistant principals in the guidance department on social emotional learning. And a big piece of that is so that we can try to intervene and be proactive so that maybe perhaps they don't need the more intense interventions that we might provide through special education. So some of the things that we have been focusing on this year include a school-wide community building. We're continuing with that with our advisories and morning meetings. A school-wide focus on growth mindset and grit. We've done a lot of stories and reading investigations around that. We have announcements every morning regarding growth mindset and really trying to work with students on that concept. We do a lot with good news cards, which I think Mr. Ramirez has examples of that we're able to send home to parents when we want to highlight something positive that our students have done, as well as positive action cards, which we give out during school-wide assemblies for students who have done a really they're model citizens. They're following our school-wide constitution. And just as a side note, our school-wide constitution is created by the students, and Lourdes is a very active person with that, and she could probably go into that a little bit more, but it's a great learning opportunity for our students. So those types of interventions probably help about 80% of our students. So really the big focus for guidance and myself is working with the other 20% and being proactive. And so some of the things that we're doing this year is we have increased the number of weekly groups that we're providing, and that's through guidance, through our adjustment counselor and our middle school guidance counselor. Those groups center around anger, social skills. They're also going into the classroom to do lessons that are around, again, social skills, but respect, getting along, appropriate dialogue, cooperation. So that's beneficial. We also have been doing some consulting with our clinical interventionists and our BCBA, which basically stands for our Board Certified Behavior Analyst. Typically, they work with our students that have need more intense interventions, but we have the expertise there. We've been utilizing them to help our teachers with those interventions in the classroom for those, maybe 15% of the students that may need it. So they've been helping them with coming up with behavior plans in the classroom for a group of students or for the class. And then that leads to, in the special ed department, my work with the teachers in terms of making sure that we are evaluating our students. I think John just talked about that a little bit, to ensure that all our students are getting the needed supports. Obviously, students with intense social emotional needs or behavioral concerns, there's it's a complex issue and there's a lot of reasons for it. And so our role is to really try to do a really comprehensive evaluations to determine what the needs of those students are, so that we can make sure those supports are provided. And those supports can include anything from very specific behavior intervention plans, counseling through our clinical interventionists, or working with families on finding outside services that they may need as well. So I don't know if I've
Yeah, no, thank you.
Anything else?
In the past, my philosophy was students who need counseling need to get counseling outside of school hours, because if you're not in the classroom, you're not learning. And I have come to understand that if you don't feel well, you don't do well. So one of the things that we're doing this year is allowing for counselors to come in at determined blocks of time. So students that wouldn't otherwise have access to counseling services will be able to get that in school. When you feel better, you do better, and that's something that we know. So talking about literacy and math, our main focus, it's of course to increase our student achievement in reading and writing, math. And also we are focusing on instilling the love for reading. We know that when students learn to love reading, it's something that will certainly develop all areas of their lives. So this year, that's one of our focus as well. So just to put it in context, because McKay is a pre-K to 8 school, when we talk about doing data meetings, we're talking about doing 10 grades worth of data meetings. When we talk about meeting with teachers individually, it takes us over a week in order for us to be able to meet with all the grades because of the vast range of grades that we service. So although other schools would have like 3 or 4 grades and they would have like 5 teachers per grade, we end up having 3 general ed teachers per grade and then a special educator that is shared among a couple grades. But it's really a great commitment on our part, and we know that that is a critical component of student achievement. So for writing, we have been looking at our students' written expression and implementing the POWER standards. As you know, they're focus standards that we know accelerate students' learning. And we are implementing the Lucy Calkins program that John and his team referred to. In addition to that, in the lower grades, K1 and 2, we have Foundations, which I think we've talked about before, which is a multisensory and systematic phonics program. And we are fortunate to have that program free of cost for McKay, because the person that created the program is a Fitchburg State University alumna, and she is committed to stay connected with Fitchburg State and McKay, where she did her practicum in 1970s. And so we're really fortunate to have that in place. And with the grant that she gives us every year comes coaching. Tomorrow we'll have one of the Wilson program coaches come in and work with our teachers, and that really helps when we look at implementing the program with fidelity. And the PD that she provides is highly customized. She comes in, she meets with teachers, she observes teachers, she models lessons for teachers, and then based on her observations, she then creates a professional development to advance our teachers' implementation of the program. We are piloting Ames Web, which is an assessment tool for grades 3 to 4 for reading. And we are using all these different data points to come to the table and do our data meetings, which I will discuss with you later tonight. We are just beginning a book study on reading strategies. It's called the Reading Strategies book, and it's a very targeted book about different components of different strategies that you can incorporate to target any issues with reading. So we're really excited about that. One of the things that we know that is critical for a school and staff to have time to meet, it's to really include that in the schedule. We know that we're always pressed with time, and we know that our students have so many different needs that need to be targeted, but finding the time for teachers to meet is something that is sacred to us. So we have two systems in place. We have a morning meeting time, which is 20 minutes in the morning, where teachers get together and discuss implementation of the curriculum and determine what the next steps are in the grade level. And during that time, we find coverage from within. So it's a very delicate scheduling dance that we have at McKay. And then we also have common planning time, which is for 50 minutes. And it happens weekly, where teachers get together. They share about best practices. They share about, so they look at student work together and they plan together. And a lot of times, one of the coaches, either the math coach or the literacy coach, consult with teachers during that time. It's a very huge advantage for us, because then we have experts that come to the table. And for example, we have the ESL teachers, the special educators come and meet with teachers during that time. So everyone's expertise is at the table. So during our last professional development session, the early release day, we focus on writing. And at McKay, all teachers are writing teachers. In the middle school, if you are a science teacher, you are still writing in science, and you would use, we call it CER, which is claim evidence reasoning. So students would then have to follow that format, and which is applicable to humanities or to math. So we focus on implementation of Lucy Calkins, and also for teachers to work with in the middle school, with their content area subjects, and to create lessons that would be aligned with their content area, and how your 5th grade writing in science, what does it look like in 6th grade? So how does it develop and grow over time? For math, we are focusing in student growth percentile, and we have been looking at the result from the standardized testing from last year for PARCC, and then now we're looking at new MCAS questions that are coming out for our students to have the opportunity to practice responding to MCAS 2.0 questions. And then we are doing what we call a portable data wall. In the past, we had data walls in the conference room. So teachers would come in, they would look at the data, and then walk out. So the data stayed behind. But now we're doing the same data format, but in a folder. So teachers move around their sticky notes, and then they take them with them. So they see the students that are in the red, the students that are in yellow, the students that are in green, and then they adjust as students make progress, where they move in the continuum under data folders. We are developing a homework support for our parents to become more familiar with the Eureka program, and for them to be able to help their children with homework at home. And our math coach is developing a resource on our website that would allow for parents to go into their website and get help when their child is struggling with homework at home. And then I mentioned the data meetings. We have begun our student-level data meetings, where teachers bring up students that they are targeting to move forward, in addition to continuing to push the rest of the class forward. And then we are creating plans to address students' needs, and then identifying strategies that teachers will implement in the classroom, and then coming back 6 weeks later and discussing the progress and readjusting the plan accordingly. This year, we are doing something new for us, and it's using Google technology to do those action plans. So instead of doing it on paper, we're literally typing the plan on a Google form and then it gets emailed to the teacher. So when they get to the classroom, the plan is already there, and teachers can focus on the conversation and the strategies while we are discussing students. So we will continue defining our partnerships with both Fitchburg State University and the Fitchburg Art Museum. In March, we have a meeting with the Fitchburg Art Museum and superintendent to create a collaboration and to continue making progress on our innovation plan. And Dean Bruno Hicks from Fitchburg State University and I are coming up with or putting together a task force to define and clarify the vision of the partnership between Fitchburg State University and Mackay. Our partnership, it's really important for Fitchburg State University and for Mackay. So we're looking at what other more meaningful ways can we collaborate to benefit both parties. I am open for questions.
Questions? Nicely done. Yes, Pete.
Thank you.
Question. Lourdes, you've been a pre-K to 8 school now for a few years. Are you starting to get any data on your kids that are staying there? You're also a choice school for the Arts Academy. Are you seeing your kids staying for the 8 years now? Are you starting to get any of that data?
We don't have, you want 3 to 5 years data to really come with great conclusions. But most of our students do stay with us. The few students that we lose, it's going from 6th to 7th grade because they go to the charter school. When you get going into 7th grade, you get a guaranteed seat for high school. So we do lose some students there. But other than that, we have very few seats to fill going from 4th to 5th grade. So it's a good indicator for us.
What is that? If grade 6 to 7, they're guaranteed a seat at Sizer?
So if you go into 7th grade, as a 7th grader, you get a high school seat guaranteed. Yeah. Because they're 7 through 12. Yeah, but our students stay with us,
Tell them they're guaranteed a seat at Fitchburg High School also.
And you know what? And absolutely. And the benefits of the Honors Academy, which I remind people on a regular basis.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, is that it?
Further questions?
No. Okay, well, thank you so much.
No, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Not bad for a championship, post-championship day.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we're going to leap right from Mackay to Goodrich Academy. And Principal Dewar is here with his whole administrative team.
All together, yeah.
What's his name?
All right, so I think what I gave you on the sheet basically you can break down into 3 things: getting to Goodrich, learning at Goodrich, and then launching from Goodrich. And I think the attendance thing is something that we're all struggling with, and I think it's a national problem, not just a Fitchburg problem. One thing that I tell students on the intake interviews is the most common reason students will lose credit or flunk out of school is absences. And so we've been making really strong overtures to students and their parents about getting themselves to school. And Ms. Curry, the guidance counselor, and all the teachers are daily calling students. And what we've pushed this trimester is once they get to 4 absences, you have to start calling every single time because you can't wait until they're what we used to call at risk, because you're at risk when you're at 4. And so the emphasis has been very strong, and we're trying to make sure that fewer students each trimester lose credits because of absence issues. Sometimes there's nothing that can happen because the student gets sick. If they've just had a baby, then we have to try to just shuffle things around. And sometimes their habits from wherever they came from are so ingrained. We have students who had 120 absences at their last school.
Wow.
and you wonder that they can even find a school then. But we do our best with them. Those students we try to work extra hard with so that we can help them try to find solutions. And then the expectation level for them in terms of getting to school regularly grows and grows. In terms of learning at Goodrich, Mrs. Smith and Mr. McNamara are really working hard at trying to bring an understanding of the Holocaust together in their classes. Mrs. Smith is doing the Boy in the Striped Pajamas with a couple of her classes at the same time that Mr. McNamara in one of the U.S. history classes is working on the Holocaust. So the students have actually made some comments to both teachers. Wait a second, we learned about this in the last class. And it's like, yes, we know, but at least they're aware of that and they're talking about it, and it gives more validity to both subjects then, because you can see, wow, these really do relate together, and pushing that has really helped. And hopefully that leads to more interdisciplinary units as we go along because it works. The blended learning we're also working hard at. Mr. McNamara works almost daily with iCivics, which is an online unit on civics and civic engagement. I think pretty much you can pass the citizenship test after you've taken this course. And in fact, a lot of times we'll use the citizenship test as a way of sort of quizzing kids on how well they're doing with the iCivics. They're also using some simulation programs with the math. And our online provider, Edgenuity, which we're piloting for Fitchburg schools this year, the teachers have taken units. I know Mrs. Smith has taken from, I think, 4 different English courses on Edgenuity and created a whole unit on Poe from that. And because she's very much into Edgar Allan Poe, and some of the resources there that she's been able to get are beyond what she had before, so that makes it a lot more interesting. And being able to take students back and forth from the computer and into more traditional teaching sort of keeps things off balance for the kids, keeps them engaged, and it helps each kid sort of find at least one way that they're going to be able to grasp that lesson. And so that's been going on very well. In terms of launching from Goodrich, this fall, Ms. Curry and Mr. Wilson helped put together our first ever in-house college fair. We had 10 different schools come. Most of them were 2-year colleges, but we also had a few sort of non-traditional 4-year colleges, mainly from Vermont. And, we want kids to have a sense of what's possible for them and what they can do in the future. You don't want a student to come to graduation and say, now what can I do? We want them to at least be saying at this part of the year, what do I want to do? And then us trying to help them find that. And also to that end, we're working on for April 11th a Career Pathways Day. The mayor, Mr. Stevens, the whole administrative team have been helping us in terms of identifying pathways that the students should be looking at. Mr. Stevens brought up technology, and he's actually volunteered many of his family members to help us out with this. And just to sort of get a sense of, again, what's possible. And we're going to have people from different colleges and training programs there as well, so they can show, hey, if I want to go into healthcare, these are some of the ways that I can do that. So I'm actually starting in healthcare without having to go 11 years to medical school and become a doctor. A lot of our students know what nursing is, and they know what being a doctor is, but they don't know all the different healthcare avenues that they have. Same thing with retail, same thing with hospitality, same thing with most forms of business. So by hopefully giving them that awareness, they can see, maybe I want to start right away into this and then go to school while I'm doing this, or maybe I want to go to school for a short time so that I can start at this job. But again, showing them what's possible and not having them say, geez, I don't know what it is that I really want to do. Prior to that, about 2 weeks before April 11th, we're going to have them do a career interest survey and so that we can help them pick 2 out of the 5 or 6 pathways that are going to be there, so that they're going to go to things that are interesting to them, as opposed to everybody goes to everything or everyone just sort of guesses. And so that's what one of our focuses is going to be. So, I think we're trying to hit the students from as many angles as possible. But huge for us is giving them a sense of, I have a future and I'm going to be a productive member of society, and Goodrich is going to help me do that.
I ask a question?
Yes,
Questions?
please.
Yes.
So at what point do you lose credit on attendance?
We get to officially after 4 you can lose credit, but absences 5, 6, 7, and 8 you can make up the time.
Yeah.
When you get to 8, we put you on a contract where ostensibly that's it. If there are really strong mitigating circumstances, we try to work with it. But the students have to make up a lot of that time, and so they are coming in. We already have students coming in now extra, either on Fridays or during off times from when their classes would meet to make up some of that time.
And is that, I should know this answer, but I don't. Is that a state level kind of requirement? It's a district
I think
policy?
the state leaves it up to the individual districts to decide. Like, I know
But
some
the state
districts
dings
have.
you for attendance, right? Like,
Yeah, we do get dinged for attendance. They do notice when the students aren't there. But I think a lot of it is, it's sort of been established that with 60 days in a trimester, there's only so many days you can miss before you sort of have lost the flavor of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so, but again, because there is some flexibility from the state, we try to work with students as best we can, but we also don't want to tell the teachers to compromise what they're doing and what
Right.
their expectations are, because it's not fair to the other students either. But, there are districts that have no attendance consequences for students, and I think that that's to their peril, because that just blows the door open for absenteeism.
Just for clarification, the state categorizes chronic absenteeism is more than 10% absent of days in membership. So if a student is enrolled from day 1 in the trimester, that would be 6 days, and they're chronically absent. But it doesn't have any regulations about what happens. So knowing that many of the students in all of our schools have issues beyond the classroom that might impact their attendance, all of our schools are working hard for students to come to school. If they're absent, contact someone, but at Goodrich, for example, a lot of the children are unaccompanied, they're on their own, they're their own sort of mobilizers. So then it's a matter of working with them to recover the time so they can recover the learning.
Yep. Some days we don't know what couch they're sleeping on that night, and so we have to catch them as we can. And when they do come to school, if they're starting to show chronic absenteeism, that's when we have to pull them into an office and really talk to them about how can we help you, because to a large extent, there are some students everywhere who will cut classes and go to the limit as best they can. But most students, there's just so much, especially at Goodrich, there's so much going on in their lives. It's how do we help you with this? And, and sometimes it's a matter of saying, your life is such a shambles right now. Let's help you get your life in order. Then we'll worry about your academics next trimester. Yes.
Do you have the social workers coming in, or
we
like
do
the other
not?
schools?
When they want to come in and visit with the students, we do. Because our students have a freer schedule, they're able to meet otherwise. But a lot of times they'll call and make appointments through us for the kids because they have the same trouble contacting the kids that we do. So.
Yes.
Sure.
How are you doing? You've been here now for a little bit. I just kind of like, what are your?
We have our days, but I think the kids are really, really great. And one thing that every time we have a guest in, one of the things that I can honestly say to our students afterwards is the students at Goodrich are the most well-behaved and considerate students I've ever worked with in terms of having guests in and in terms of the way they treat their faculty. And I think if you've been there, you probably see this too. They are polite. They ask the right questions. You just need to give them a glance if they're sort of getting off track and stuff like that. And it's really nice to have that. We don't have to worry about their behaviors, and a large part of that is the faculty works hard on that and maintaining it. And the whole atmosphere that was at the school when I was there has been that way. So it's a lot easier to focus on what matters at Goodrich than most other places, and that's been really nice for me.
Are you staffed at the level that you need? I mean, I suppose nobody's staffed at the level they really need, but
We have the staffing that would be appropriate for the size student body that we have, I think. Is that the correct answer? No, I
you
think,
don't have
you know,
coaching or anything.
no, we're not.
Like,
You know, we're a little bit
overseeing
tight when people are out.
Yeah.
I get to sub a lot, but I don't mind subbing because it's contact with the kids. And our jobs coach, Mr. Wilson, will sub, and Ms. Curry will sub when it becomes necessary. So, you know, and today we were doing MCAS Bio, and we had 4 students who needed individual attention. So we were stretched, but you know, we got through it, and that was only for a couple hours, and then the day went on as usual. So, yes.
My experience has been that they're also very polite to the people in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So and when I walk my dog past there, and they always
They love watching the dogs go by.
They come over,
and then it's like,
they-
what kind of dog is that?
You're a
They come
distraction
over-
if our
No,
MCAS
no,
scores
they-
go
they-
down.
No, that's when they're outside.
They're
Yeah.
outside. They come over and they talk.
Well,
and they
with
wanna
MCAS
know
Bio
about the
today, the
dog.
dogs were
No, they're
really
great.
helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're great.
All set?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
very much. Thank you for your support.
Ray's done a great job. As you know, Mike Pellin was big shoes to fill.
That's right.
And you're never going to get the exact same person. And Ray's been able to come in and also do a good job. And a lot of it had to do with the school was stable. The teachers really do a lot about driving what happens at that school, how it happens, and all of that. So thank you, not only to Ray, but to Mike and to the teachers and everybody who set up that school.
Mr. Chairman, could we, before we go on, could we take an action item out of order? I'd like to take 813
Yep.
out of order.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion. Second.
Motion made, seconded, to take 117-813 out of order. Superintendent recommendation to approve the first reading of the student search policy number 5718. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is unanimous.
I'm opposed.
Yeah, you're opposed.
Yep.
One in opposition. Thank you. Want to continue, Superintendent?
You just, in your packet, as is appropriate, you received the annual FLAC report. We're a member of 2 collaboratives, FLAC and CAPS, and what you're looking at here is the FLAC report.
May I? I'm so sorry, but I feel like I need to clarify. You were asking to move it.
Oh,
You weren't asking
no.
for the reading, correct?
Yeah, we
'Cause
were
that's what I
asking to
was-
take it up.
To take it up.
Take the vote for that
Okay,
first reading.
okay, yeah. I wasn't saying that I
Are
don't.
you still in opposition?
I'm in opposition to moving it up. I just wanted, but I'm not in opposition to policy, so I just
okay.
wanted to make sure, because Marisa asked me something, and I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Then you have the agreement every year. We work on an agreement with the city to related charges, known as indirect charges. We've gone back and forth with that with the city. The numbers change as we go along, and then we come to a final number, and we've just signed off on that. So you have that in your packet also, Bob.
And then it's gone through the resource subcommittee meeting. That was the last thing that we
Okay. And then for grants, there's a grant that we will be submitting, and that is the grant for $204,415. This is a grant we've been involved in before. Thank you to Paula and the other folks who marshaled getting this grant ready to go. And it's for a partnership with the Leominster Public Schools. We'll be the fiscal agent to provide high customized intensive immersion institute for 80 teachers of mathematics. The name Andrew Chen, those of you who've been around for a while, you remember that. He is from MIT. MIT, and he does all of the training. He's a fabulous guy, takes something incredibly complex and makes it very understandable to a wide variety of teachers. And then we're going to accept a grant from the Fitchburg Cultural Council for $800, and that'll cover the cost of visiting Farm Animal Program for the Literacy, Math, and Science Fair in April. So we have to get an animal grant in there somewhere, and we did, so we've done our
There were
job.
pause. There were pause. Yes, indeed.
Then
There
you
were
have some policy recommendations. You've already looked at one, is the student search policy. The time and location is related to the change of your meetings, which was discussed in a subcommittee meeting, and then a policy on work permits. So the rest is now discussion and action items.
Seeing none for, no one present for public testimony. Next is action items. Do we want to take them? Do we want to bundle them, as they say?
I do have some questions
Yes.
on a couple.
Go ahead.
May I ask a
Yes,
question?
please.
I would just want to have the school search policy reflected that, I mean, these are typos, but there's a period missing. I think there should be a period at the end of that first paragraph.
These are first reading, just the
Yep.
first reading.
So,
Just give it back to the, find
So
the
just do
correction,
that.
give it back, and they can correct it for the second reading.
wait, can I ask a question at this point?
Sure,
though?
go ahead.
Where it says that notification be given through the student and parent handbook and on school and district websites, is that a special notice that would go home?
Where are you, Ms.
I didn't
LaBelle?
hear
Okay,
what you said.
so I'm on the last line of the student search policy, and it says, once notification has been given to parents and students through the inclusion of the policies in the student and/or parent handbook and on the school district websites, the district will have met its obligation to advertise the searches. So I just wanted to know, does that mean it would be like in the middle of this year, or will it be next year's handbook, or?
Once you vote on this policy after the second reading, it goes into place.
Yeah.
So then it goes to procedures and regulations. The policy just covers it going in at any time.
Right, this is
Nothing
part
can
of,
happen
this is
until.
part of the policy.
Yeah.
So what, my recollection of what was discussed at the meeting was, and Sally, that it would go on the websites. It would probably, and we would work with, because the principal will ensure this is completed, be a Connect Ed message, but we wouldn't redo the handbooks now for redistribution. But this would be in the handbook for next
Okay.
year, along with the website, the Connect Ed.
Okay,
And that I think what was discussed also is that, like many other new things that are being implemented to the high school, the principal would actually have all the classes coming down.
That's right.
One at a time, and would go over this new policy because it directly affects the
Right.
high school.
And then may I have one final question? On the back page, under regulations, when it says, should a search be required of a student's person, the parent will be notified. Is that prior to search? Because I know for where I work, if there was a concern, you would make sure that you take care of the safety precaution, right? You take the safety precaution. But, so does that need to be clarified?
Well, this is specific to a search of a person by the K-9.
Okay.
So this is not, I think you might have
Yeah,
a knife
different-
on
yeah.
you, I
Yeah.
think you might have something on you. This is because what the policy is, what the process as it was explained through the demonstration here is that the searches take place in the hallway in lockers, and the students are not in there.
Right.
What our policy said, and the stop me if anything I'm
Right.
saying is different, what the policy said and what the subcommittee supported was that there could also be personal searches of a person.
1, 2,
Of
3,
the
4.
individual.
.4.
Yeah, .4. So then, what was decided was that should stay in there, but in the regulations, that it be made clear that when you go to an individual search of a person by a K-9 who's trained to do that before that takes place, the parent is notified.
Mhm. Okay, and so any other typos or anything, I just will send that to the committee? Is that?
Yeah.
Could that be changed so that it says will be notified prior?
Should a search be
Not-
required of a student's person by the K-9, the parent will be notified prior to the search occurring.
That's because that was the intention, so
Okay.
that makes it
All right.
clearer.
Does that reflect what you're?
Yes.
Okay.
Does that do it for you, Jean?
Yep.
Okay.
All set? Okay, thanks, Gene. Any other questions? So we're going to proceed. Yes, action item 17-809 up through and including 17-816.
Make a motion?
Motion made to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I believe it's unanimous. No need for executive session. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made to adjourn, seconded. All in favor?
Aye, Patty.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.